Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. He puts her against the wall and smashes his hand on the wall. He warns her to never try to leave him again. She holds his face in her hands. He wonders if she thought she could just walk away then. She calls him Your Grace but is interrupted by him mid-sentence. He emphasizes that she should call him by his own name. Under ebony hair, his red gaze flickered intensely as if it would devour her any time. The sharp howling wind which was blowing fiercely just a moment ago gradually faded away, making it feel like they were the only ones left in this whole world. In the next panel, a red-haired girl who is reading this beautiful romance manga shouts out with excitement. She is very much amazed by the writing of the author of this novel. She was eagerly waiting to get to this certain scene. As she is reading the manga, she is interrupted by her maid who came to her room to inform her that someone from the royal palace has come to see her. She seems bothered by this as the scene she was reading was a very important one. However, she closes the book and prepares to walk out of the room with her maid to meet the guest from the royal palace. Her name is Clisha Mezerin. She is the only daughter of the lord of very quiet and peaceful Shumarine, Mezerin Viscounty. She is the founder of the Northern Duke Research Society at Shumarine Academy. She is a genre novel enthusiast, especially of those featuring the Northern Duke. Her hobby is reading Northern Duke novels. Her special skill is to be able to memorize the Northern Duke profiles, while her dream is, you guessed it already, to marry the Northern Duke. She spent her days peacefully and abundantly like this, with each and every single day being the same. As she is fantasizing about her honeymoon plans, her maid informs her that they have arrived. However, she wonders why someone from the royal palace came here all of a sudden. She fears that something might be wrong. Clisha assures her that it is not something serious as she has never been to the capital, let alone the royal palace. She thinks that it must be a guest of her father. However, she is bamboozled to hear that the Majesty has demanded a divorce from her. As the royal messenger continues to relay the message, Clisha cuts in and asks her about the divorce. She is thinking how there can be a divorce between them when she has not even got married. Moreover, she has also never met the emperor in her whole life. As she is astonished by this news, she is further confused when she hears the explanation. The royal messenger explains to her that there was a clerical error in the marriage records at the Grand Temple, and because of that she is legally married to the emperor on paper. The royal messenger throws her into valleys of despair when he informs her that according to the divorce procedures specified in the imperial law, after the commencement of divorce, the empress is required to seclude herself for 10 years to diminish her political influence. To make that possible for current Mezerin Viscounty, a relocation order to Rika Island has been issued for her, which simply means that she would not be able to return to the mainland for the next 10 years. The royal messenger adds that, as a compensation, the emperor has promised to provide vast lands, wealth, and territories to Mezerin Viscounty. However, even this does not satisfy Clisha, as she thinks that this is full of nonsense. She shouts so loud in front of the royal messenger that her voice could be heard by the gardener in the lawn. She becomes hysterical after hearing this whole explanation. She thinks that it is not fair for her to pay for their mistake. Before she starts insulting the royal messenger, Isaac Mezerin of the Mezerin Viscounty, her father, puts his hand on her mouth and bids farewell to the royal messenger. However, the assistant of the royal messenger asks him if this is okay. He assures him that they have done everything they could possibly do. She goes into trauma after hearing this royal decree. Her father asks her if she has calmed down. The more she thinks about this royal decree, the less sense it makes. She thinks that despite the fact the royal family is very powerful, this decree is still way too much. Her father agrees with this. She asks her father if he is upset that the royal family is treating him this way. She still doesn't see why she should be held responsible and blamed, despite the fact that the royal family made the error. His father, even though he knows that the royal family is at fault, thinks that they cannot afford to deny a royal decree. Clisha goes into shock and becomes silent after hearing this response from her father. His father was once a commoner knight. He distinguished himself in a war 10 years ago and was granted the title of Viscount along with Plains of Shumarine as his territory. He did not have any interest in struggles between the nobles for power. He only lives and dies by the command of the royal family, truly like a loyal soldier does. Clisha wonders if she also has to obey this absurd order just like his father. She thinks that the seclusion ordered by the royal family is basically an exile for 10 years. She also cannot seem to shake off the fact that she would be divorced at the mere age of 21, as she plans to marry a northern duke. As she is thinking, a phoenix bird, whose name is Kukas, appears in front of her. It tells her that she is unfortunately bound by human rules. However, he assures her that she belongs to a grand cycle that governs the flow of this world. Clisha is tired of hearing about this grand cycle for years. She begs Cucus to stop talking about it, as it is not something very important. After thinking for some time, she makes a decision suddenly that she will not sacrifice herself for the sake of her father's chivalry. She plans to go to the temple to demand answers. In case this does not work, she also plans to go to the royal palace to settle this matter. She thinks that she needs to see the face of the man who is supposed to be her husband. Cucus, who is hearing all of this, thinks that the cycle has finally begun to move. Then we see Clisha jumping out of her room to go to the capital, for which she needs to stop by the stables. She wonders if everyone thought she would go along quietly with their decisions. As she is walking to the gate, she is surprised to see her father, who seems to be waiting for her. While wearing his knight armor, he knows that Clisha intends to go to the capital. However, he informs her daughter that a royal decree is both a noble's duty and a knight's honor, and if she truly wishes to leave to the capital, she must first overcome him, the Red Lion of Shumarine. In the very next moment, he gets smashed to the ground by Clisha, who has already mastered the upper level of Fire Rune. He goes into despair because of the fact that she went quite hard on her old father. He is informed that Clisha has passed through the front gate. The butler inquires whether they should go after her. Isaac thinks that there is no need for that, as they have done their very best to prevent her from running away, and he thinks that it is about time she decided to move on her own. Isaac thinks that the bloodline she possesses does not allow her to grow up sheltered. To hone her skills, she needs to go out and face some hardships. As they are talking, Clisha continues to race towards the capital on her horse very fast. After that, Isaac stands up to walk to his room with his aching back. By the time the sun shines brightly over the mountains, Clisha manages to reach Gateway City Muta, which is considered a paradise for the travelers and the largest commercial district in the empire. Because it is the only flat route from the south to the capital, it is always bustling with the people and money from merchants from all over the continent, along with numerous travelers, mercenaries, couriers, errand runners, and problem solvers. Clisha, despite her current appearance of heroine, managed to cover a 2-week distance in just 3 days by riding non-stop without giving any rest to the poor horse. Shoecream, her horse, starts drooling when he sees the delicious meat on the food stalls. As he is about to take a bite, he gets stopped by Clisha, who warns him to not give others a clue that he is a mixed breed, because she is trying to maintain a normal traveler image. The horse wonders if his owner has any conscience, as she has only given her jerky for 3 days straight. Clisha reminds him that he can easily go a week without any food. Upon continuous struggle from Shoecream, she promises him that she would give him meat when they reach the capital. Shoecream thinks that it is abuse, as he is pushed into the stable by Clisha. After giving Shoecream to the stable owner, she rushes out of the shop. Shoecream continues to shout her name as she leaves her. Clisha ignores it by joking it off as a separation anxiety and continues to run away from the stable. She books a room in the lounge and sits at the table waiting for the food to be served. As she waits for her food, she is gazed at by other men in the lounge who are confused about whether she is a man or a woman. Some think that she is not a man, as her stature is very small. However, as they see her gluttony, all of them reach a conclusion that Clisha is actually a man. Clisha, on the other hand, is oblivious of their gazes, as she is very hungry. She misses her father a lot after she leaves her home. She gazes upon her leg piece, thinking whether she should let Shoecream have a bite, but decides not to. Her horse, Shoecream, is actually a hybrid of dragon and a horse, which makes him a lot similar to a divine beast. He is a carnivorous horse that can easily cross the continent in a week, which is a sign of him being a true monstrosity. They are very rare, to the point that it is quite impossible to see one outside the royal palace. Clisha, however, happened to find her on a road, right in the middle of a ferocious battlefield. She offered him a jerky, which was rejected by him, as he cannot eat a piece of meat like this. But Clisha, however, managed to pet him by offering her the jerky on a stick. She met Shoecream in the war with the Serban Empire that lasted for 10 years. She spent her whole childhood on that battlefield. She roamed the battlefield, being carried on her father's back when she was a baby. She is annoyed by the fact that she is soon to be exiled for 10 years after finally being able to enjoy her youth. As she finishes her food, she wishes for the Emperor to be a reasonable person. In Muta, which is the largest commercial city in the Furza Empire, there is a reigning power known as Toma Holdings Corporation, which is oftentimes more powerful than the royal family and more revered than the Genesis Temple. Toma's influence is spreaded in all of the Muta, from children's candy to the lifeblood of the black market. This huge corporation that dominates the Furja Empire's commerce is surprisingly run by a single young man. His name is Toma Ryukin. He oversees all of the matters of Toma Holdings. As he is having a stroll in the horse stable with his workers, he is informed that the price of imported hay has increased. Upon hearing this, he orders this matter to be investigated. He continues to discuss business matters with his workers as his eyes fall upon Shoecream, who is having dreams about meat. He inquires about the owner of this horse. He is informed by the stable manager that this horse belongs to a guest who is staying at Toma Inn. The manager wonders whether there's a problem. Toma Ryukin further asks if that guest is a noble. The manager is not sure about that because he only manages the horses, but he assumes that the guest is probably a commoner as they are staying at the inn. Ryukin smiles and orders this matter to be investigated as he continues to walk out of the stable. Luke, who is one of his servants, is intrigued why his master wants to know about that horse's owner. Ryukin informs him that to be able to do business, one needs to sharpen one's eyes. He tells him that the horse is actually a hybrid which is not possible for a commoner to own. He thinks that it would be fortunate if the owner is a common noble who wants to hide their identity for personal reasons. However, it would be a different story if the Emperor had noticed them and sent a spy. The scene then shifts to Klisha, who is sleeping soundly on her bed as two thieves enter her room. They notice that she is actually a woman who looks like a noble on the run. However, none of this matters to the legend of the Muta, the Brothers of the Night, as there is nothing in the world they cannot steal. As they are about to steal from Klisha, she lets out a loud groan which ends up scaring them. One of them wonders if she is awake. The other brother assures her that she is not, as they mixed a large quantity of horn mushroom powder in her meal, which was enough to knock out 10 elephants, so, instead of sweating about small details, they should just calmly take her stuff. When they go through her stuff, they become certain that she is a noble despite her scruffy appearance. One of the brothers gazes upon the sword wrapped in a cloth, which looks like some kind of antique. As they are wondering, Klisha wakes up from her sleep engulfed in anger. One of the brothers is still wondering about the worth of the sword as Klisha kicks one of them to the wall, which knocks him out. The other brother looks at Klisha, wondering about when she woke up from her sleep. Without wasting any time, Klisha grabs him by the neck and slams him to the floor. She is infuriated because they messed with her sword, Kreta, wondering if they are assassins. The Brothers of the Night are sitting timidly in Klisha's room with their faces swollen, after getting a brutal beating from her. They see Klisha as some kind of vicious cobra snake, ready to bite them any time. Klisha orders them to answer whether they were after her sword Kreta. The Brothers of the Night assure her that none of this is true, and they were not after her Kreta, as they do not even know what a Kreta is. They further tell her that they are just thieves who only came to steal a little money. However, Klisha does not seem to believe them at all. She cannot seem to believe that they disguised themselves to avoid suspicion as petty thieves and came to her room to rob money. They kept assuring her that it is true as they only target young, inexperienced travelers. To complete their task, they mix a little sleeping potion into the inn's food and sneak in at night to rob the travelers, and they are quite notorious for this. They are the legendary sneaky Brothers of the Night in Muta, and their motto is that there is nothing in this world they cannot steal. Klisha is doubtful about the sneaky part, but what intrigues her is the horn mushroom. The Night Brothers tell her that, even though not many people use it, one can use powdered horn mushroom as a sleeping agent. However, they wonder why it did not work this time on Klisha. Klisha sighs and tells them that the horn mushroom does not work on her, which surprises the Night Brothers, wondering if she is immune to horn mushroom. The scene then shifts to Red Lion of Shumarine and the self-proclaimed uncle and aunt of Klisha. There is also a young knight, Aunt Lance, among them, famously known as the Master of Modern Medicine. She made many significant contributions on the battlefield where the medical supplies were scarce. Despite the fact that she contributed greatly to the knights on the battlefield, her excessive affection for Klisha was a problem. She fed strange things to Klisha, in the name of nutrition, despite Isaac being vehemently against this. However, through precise dosage control, she managed to train Klisha to be immune to almost all kinds of poison. Therefore, the reason Klisha slept earlier was not because of horn mushrooms, but because she was very tired. This ends up giving the Night Brothers a great shock, and they started to think if it even made sense. To be able to not only beat up two men with her small stature, but also being immune to poison made them think if Klisha was even a woman. Klisha, however, is thinking to report these two brothers to the guards. The guards, upon hearing this, beg Klisha to let them go one time. They promised that they would never steal again, and the only reason they resorted to stealing was because they were desperately poor and hungry. They only started stealing because they were struggling to pay for their mother's medicine for dementia. As they are begging her to let them go, Clisha notices that there is a knock on her door. It is the lounge manager who came because heard some noise coming from her room. Clisha, realizing that the lounge manager arrived here too quickly, orders the Knight brothers to take the money and leave quickly within 10 seconds. They are astonished over the fact that Clisha is letting them go. Clisha explains that even though they have done bad things, they did not ever draw blood for their purpose, so they should consider this the price for quitting this life. She advises them to not waste this money and use it for their mother's medicine. After hearing this, blind by the red radiance they felt Clisha was giving, they thought that she was the Red Witch. Clisha became infuriated over being called a witch, even though she went out of her way to save them. The brothers, doing their best to not get swept by her anger, finally decide to leave, thanking Clisha for her kindness. In the next scene, the Knight brothers jump off the roof and start escaping, laughing about how they fooled Clisha, as they are orphans, and they do not even have a mother. They wonder if they are more suited to scamming than stealing. As they continue to run, they realize that it felt like they met the Red Witch again, and they decide to quit stealing from others for real. The scene then shifts to Clisha, who is assuring the lounge manager that she was not robbed, rather she was just catching some bugs. Clisha sits on to her bed with a sigh, wondering about the drama that happened. She unnecessarily got involved in it because she was reminded of growing up without a mother. As she is reminiscing about her past, she manages to spot another thief who was hiding behind her room's window the whole time. After getting found out by Clisha, the thief did not hesitate to waste a moment and quickly jumped from her window and ran away, while she wondered about the weird happenings in this town, as it is hard for one to travel if it is this scary. The scene then shifts to Rican, who is getting information about Clisha from his servant, Luke. He informs Rican that the name of the person staying at the inn is Sasha Lynn, who appears to be 18 years old. He further informs Rican that Sasha used gold coins from the Imperial Central Bank and was covered in dirt like a homeless person. Despite that, he naturally talked down to the staff who served him food right away. He also ate hastily as if he was starving, but still managed to observe basic etiquette thoroughly. Rican ponders for a moment and tells Luke that he is the young heir of a southern noble family, which surprises Luke. Rican further deduces that the mixed-breed warhorse he saw in the stable was exhausted, because it ran day and night for at least 3 days. Rican adds that it only makes sense if he came straight up from the southern part of the empire. He further deduces that Sasha has an urgent business in the capital, which explains him hiding his identity while riding a mixed-breed warhorse to the capital alone. As they are discussing, they hear someone entering Rican's room. He is the same man who was sneaking on Clisha. He informs Rican that the Brothers of the Night made their move. Luke is surprised upon hearing about the Brothers of the Night, the petty thieves who have been active for years. The spy informs Rican that he observed Sasha closely in case he was in any danger, but he easily subdued the brothers and said that he was resistant to most poison. The spy further adds that Sasha was also able to notice his presence that made him withdraw quickly, which surprises both Rican and his servant Luke. The spy also assumes Sasha to be a rune user, but he was not able to identify what kind of rune it was. Rican is amused after hearing all of this information, and he asks about the recent happenings in the Imperial family, wondering if the old men of Xenia said something. Luke informs him that there is no special news from the Imperial family, and Xenia only sends details about the financial expenses of the Imperial family. Rican thinks that they have managed to find the Emperor's secret agent and they need to meet that boy in person, and for that to happen, he orders Luke to make it happen as naturally as possible. The chapter starts with the mention of the Servan War. It is said that 20 years ago, the Ashia continent was being consumed by the ambitions of the Servan Empire. The Servan Imperial family possessed the power to shatter the mines, which made it possible for them to sweep across the entire continent, committing massacres and mass plundering. As the Servan Empire was about to conquer the Ashia continent, the Ferja Empire led by the knight Isaac Mesrin succeeded in reclaiming the southern part of the continent, which made him earn the title of the Red Lion of the battlefield. That marked the beginning of the fierce battle between the two great empires, Ferja and Servan. After 9 years of continuous war, the situation of the battlefield completely reversed at the Carrion Plains with the help of only one person who also personally managed to behead all the members of the Servan Imperial family. The man who was able to unify 70% of the Ashia continent and end the war was none other than the 16-year-old Crown Prince, the sole ruler of the continent's 5 great dynasties, Ian Ferja. He was the youngest emperor who ascended the throne, and also managed to stabilize the chaotic situation of the Ashia continent, and he has been ruling for 10 years. The scene then shifts to the 4th Emperor of Phrygia, Yan Felician de Phrygia, who smashes his table furiously because he cannot seem to believe that he got married to someone he has not even met due to some clerical error. The marriage registration was submitted 3 years ago, so he is currently married according to the documents. Yan is surprised over the fact that the officials found out about this only after 3 years. The officials apologized for their negligence. Yan overlooks their mistake and orders them to cancel it quickly, while making sure that no unnecessary traces are left. However, he is surprised as he is informed by one of the officials that it is impossible to cancel the marriage now as the marriage register is under the jurisdiction of the temple, which cannot be handled by the imperial palace, and this is the first time they have learned of this law. Yan Phrygia goes silent after hearing this. He then puts his hands over the documents and starts throwing them to the faces of the officials. Behind the clean and strong appearance of the great emperor Yan Phrygia, the hero of the Ashia War, lies his true nature of a capricious psychopath, a mad dog, lunatic, and a scoundrel who does not care about anyone. As he is beating the officials, he calls Murhi, his advisor, and orders him to prepare for his meeting with the head of the temple, as he needs to meet him right this very instant. Murhi assures that he will do it right away, while praying to the creator of the world to kindly let this drama be resolved within the temple. But his prayers are not answered as the head of the temple informs the emperor that it is simply not possible to cancel the marriage, which sends both the emperor and his advisor Owen Murhi into deep shock. The emperor asks the head of the temple about the reason for it not being possible, while Murhi is wondering whether he should change his religion or not. The head simply says that it is just not possible because the documents regarding the royal birth, registration, marriage, and so on are all managed by the temple to prevent any kind of manipulation of the royal lineage by those in power within the palace. For this reason, even the emperor is not able to change the documents. Yan corrects the head that it is not about modification because the documents were messed up by the temple in the first place. The head of the temple responds that it is merely the claim of the current palace because according to the current records, the marriage registration was submitted correctly 3 years ago. He further continues that the correction period for the marriage is only 1 year, and after that year, the document is blessed and sealed by the church. After that, no one is able to alter the blessed records regardless of the reason they have. The head further adds that the marriage document of the emperor was blessed 3 times for special reasons. The emperor is very much annoyed by this explanation. Murhi sees his annoyed face and repeatedly begs him to be patient. Yan suggests that the situation can be resolved if they bring the parties involved to testify to prove that it was not coerced. The head of the temple, however, rejects this suggestion as he has no way of knowing if the woman was oppressed or coerced by the emperor's change of heart. The emperor gets infuriated by the comment made by the head of the temple. He activates his rune which freezes the coffee the head of the temple was drinking and asks the head whether he truly understands the gravity of the comment he just made. His advisor, Owen Murhi, requests him to withdraw the rune as he is in the temple. The head of the temple, on the other hand, gazes at his freezed coffee and reminds the emperor that because he is the highest and the noblest person in this land, the rules, therefore, must be stricter for him. He then clearly states as the head priest of the creation temple that the marriage of the emperor cannot be altered no matter what. After that, the scene shifts to the palace where the emperor just smashed the palace wall. He is wondering if he should burn down everything or change the state religion instead. Murhi, on the other hand, quickly advises the officials to just get out of his sight, otherwise, it is totally possible that they will be the next target of the emperor's punch. Yan thinks that the people at the temple are out of their minds as they sealed the emperor's marriage record without even bothering to report it to the palace. Murhi hears this and reminds Yan of the time when he ordered Murhi to handle the delayed paperwork himself, as that was the only reason they brought Murhi, the genius of the century, from the academy. Murhi cries that he cannot handle this alone and final budgets must be done by the emperor, as there are some documents that cannot be accessed by an advisor, but Yan thinks that to be a hassle. Murhi asks about the ambush that was by the rebels today. Yan thinks that they are deluded that they can challenge the young emperor. Yan then asks Murhi about the documents which cannot be accessed by the advisor. Murhi tells him that the documents from the creation temple must be reviewed by the emperor himself as it is mandated by law. Yan orders him to just not submit them in the future. Murhi, astonished by the emperor's response, advises him that even though most of it is not important, something critical can come up sometimes. Yan does not let him finish his sentence and orders him to not submit them in the future. Murray continues to object to this, but eventually stops after getting a scary gaze from the Emperor. He then informs him about how much of the financial donation should be omitted. Yan replies that he can do as he sees fit. Murray advises that this could cause problems, but Emperor orders him to do as he sees fit. It seems like one of the documents from the Creation Temple, which were delayed by the Murray, contained the marriage record of the Emperor. Yan gets crazy as he realizes this and thinks that Murray should have handled it efficiently to avoid the problems. He activates his rune to smack Murray, while Murray cries that he went through all the approvals with the Majesty. As they are arguing over this, they are interrupted by the brother of the Emperor, who requests the Count Murray to stop tormenting his brother. He tells him that this matter can be resolved as long as they are not a married couple. Continuing from the 4th chapter, the Emperor's brother advises him to consider getting a divorce, as there is no other option besides this. Murray agrees with this, as there will be a record of divorce in the documents, but it does not matter because not anyone can view the documents of the Emperor, and the only legal way to handle it is through the palace. Yan ponders over this for a while and then asks about the woman who got involved with her due to this drama. Murray informs him that she is a noble from the provinces, Baron Mezerin's eldest daughter, Lady Clisha. Both of the brothers are astonished after hearing the name Mezerin. The Emperor's brother asks if he is the Mezerin of Shumarine. As Yan thinks about Sir Isaac, he wonders if he is her certain daughter, which he seems to remember. Murray wonders as to why the Emperor is thinking about Sir Isaac, as he is just a knight who received the Baron title for his military exploits. Murray affirms that she is indeed the daughter of Sir Isaac, who is 21 years old, and she also has no notable issues. Yan, upon hearing this, rejects the proposal of divorce, as this would cause the lady to have a divorce record, and she would also have to live in seclusion for 10 years, as she would be Emperor's ex-wife due to a law. This sends Murray into a shock, as the Emperor, who is supposed to be a capricious psychopath, is worrying about another person. However, Murray assures him that if they follow the formal divorce process, then it would not be unfair to the Lady Clisha, as she will be treated as an ex-empress officially, and she will also receive a huge amount of wealth and lands as a compensation, and this would not count as a loss for Baron's daughter. Yan still rejects this proposal, as this will ruin the bright future of a young lady, and proceeds to ask for an alternative. His brother, who is looking at Yan, suggests a national mourning. The Emperor, Yan, and his advisor Murray are shocked by this proposal. The Emperor asks if that is even a suggestion for this situation, while Murray thinks that there are limits to jokes. After seeing that both of them did not like his suggestion, he then suggests his brother to marry the lady herself, as it is what their fate decided. Murray requests the Emperor's brother, Ryan, to stop, while Ryan thinks that how can Murray give his opinion on likes and dislikes of the Emperor's affairs. Yan, on the other hand, is infuriated by Ryan's comment and activates his rune. He smashes his hand on the table angrily and orders Sir Ryan Bardier de Ferja to come with him to the training grounds. In the next panel, the types of magic used in the Ferja Empire are explained. First is simple magic, which uses rare minerals called mana stones as a medium to perform spells with intricate rituals and calculations. The second is called rune magic, which directly utilizes natural energy by assimilating into the body. The simple magic is widely spread and can be used for daily conveniences as long as one has mana stones and rituals. The rune magic, on the other hand, can only be learned if one's physical traits and affinity match, making it a power used by a select few. In Ferja, those with exceptional martial prowess among rune users are called rune knights. The wind rune, known as the power of flow, is specialized in combat. That is why most rune knights, including Sir Ryan, choose the wind rune. In contrast, the water rune is the power of stagnation. It is less effective in combat due to its affinity, but the Emperor can use all the 5 runes. He is the only great ruler of the continent's 5 great dynasties. After that, we see the Emperor using the thunder rune and attacks just beside Sir Ryan. As Sir Ryan is talking, Yan charges with an ice rune and aims at his neck with his sword. Ryan manages to block it, but is amazed by the power output of his brother with a mere training sword. He decides that he needs to increase the distance first. As he is thinking about it, his right foot gets frozen. Yan gets closer to his brother and activates the flame rune and starts smacking his brother with his training sword. He thinks that he has been neglecting his younger brother way too much, and he apologizes and thinks that he should have frequently trained him to be disciplined whenever he had time. Ryan, who managed to block his brother's attack, tells his brother that he would have been dead were it not for his younger brother. Yan then orders Ryan to personally go and guide Clisha Mezerin through the divorce process. Ryan wonders if he has to go personally, as he is the head of the guard and Shumarine is 2 weeks away from the royal capital. Ian does not listen to any word Ryan says and leaves the training ground. Ryan, who is still confused as to how he should explain this, is left alone as Marie also decides to leave the training room to avoid the fallout. It seems like Ryan was the one who relayed the Emperor's message to Baron. Ryan believes that his brother is weak against Isaac Mazarin, because instead of punishing this impudent commoner who refused the position of the commander, he even granted him the Baron title and land. Ryan does not think that the Mazarin family wants to conspire anything which make things easier for him, as there is no need to worry further about a simple country estate with only an old retired knight and uncultured young woman. Sir Ryan Bardier de Ferja is the Emperor's brother who gave up noble life to become the Emperor's sword and the commander of the Imperial Elite Special Guard, the Imperial Guards. He, despite being all of that, did not know what kind of trouble that uncultured young woman from the simple country estate would bring to the Empire. The chapter starts with the secretary of Thomas Rican, Luke, being asked of the kind of action to be taken against the boy named Sasha Lynn. Luke remembers that his boss instructed him to create connections as naturally as possible. Luke asks about the horse of Sasha Lynn, which is a hybrid. He inquires about how that horse is being managed. He is informed that he is only provided with water, as Sasha is supposed to leave tomorrow, and they cannot feed him meat as his identity might get revealed right away. Luke considers this a good opportunity and decides to plan something. The scene then shifts to Clisha, who is having an existential crisis, questioning about her whereabouts as she sees her horse Shoecream rampaging the meat stalls of the whole area. Shoecream is eating the delicious meat from the broken stalls, while the audience is astonished to see him charge into the butcher's shop. They are surprised to see a horse eat meat instead of grass. The fruit vendor is sitting behind his fruits which fell down from his stall, while the butcher is standing beside his stall with his butcher knife, totally shocked by the recent accident. All of them are wondering if he is a monster instead of a horse. Clisha, who heard that a crazy horse was causing a scene, came running just in case, only to see Shoecream being crazy over meat. She is quite pissed off at her horse's behavior, waiting for someone to explain what is even going on here. Shoecream assures her that this is a misunderstanding, as he was so hungry that he was not able to understand what he was even doing. Clisha does not believe his horse and wonders if he wants to die. Shoecream begs that he only wants this meat and tells Clisha that it is not a common courtesy to touch someone else's food even if one's a dog. Clisha, on the other hand, orders him to drop this meat before he is turned into horse meat instead by the butcher. As they are both struggling to get the piece of meat, it slips from Clisha's hands and lands on the face of the Hans, who is the owner of Toma Meat. He goes into trauma after observing this whole situation and starts to cry over the meat he lost. Rican's secretary, Luke, who seemed like he was waiting for this moment, asks Clisha if she is the owner of that horse. Clisha realizes that her horse made a really big mess. The scene then shifts to Clisha, who is sitting in front of Luke in the headquarters of Toma Holdings, apologizing for the trouble her horse caused. He tells Luke that he does not usually cause such incidents, and it seems like he suddenly went crazy. Clisha continues that she was startled this early in the morning, and she was actually planning to leave Muta today. Luke thinks that Clisha, who he thinks is a boy named Sasha, is oddly composed. Just like his boss thought, this boy is not ordinary. It would be normal for him to apologize or to be intimidated after causing such a scale of damage. He was a bit taken aback by the effectiveness of appetite stimulants in the water for Shoecream, as it was really unexpected for him to destroy 3 buildings. It would have been difficult to bring him in if Shoecream did not go far. Clisha asks about the compensation for the damage Shoecream caused, wondering if Luke is the owner of the butcher shop. Luke corrects Sasha that it was one of their subsidiaries along with the damaged stables and shop. Therefore, the compensation issue will be handled by them. Clisha has heard of Toma Holdings and believes that because of that the procedure will be a bit easier. Luke agrees to this. Clisha is very tense, wondering whether her damned horse also ate the tables along with the meat, while Luke is surprised that Sasha is acting way too calm even though Toma Holdings is involved, which makes him think that Sasha is a very suspicious individual. Luke informs Sasha that he would be leaving and the compensation amount will be personally handled by their boss, as it is quite a significant amount. As Luke guides his boss, Clisha wonders how much it will cost. As Clisha sips tea while waiting for Luke's boss, she is greeted by Toma Ryukin. He tells her that he was informed that she caused damages to the company. As Clisha gazes upon Ryukin's face, she is shocked to see the redeeming features of the Northern Duke in Ryukin. As she sees Riken's dark black hair and red eyes along with his dark gloomy suit, she cannot hold her excitement and calls her a Northern Duke. Her comment shocks Toma Riken, making him wonder about the identity of Sasha. Toma Holdings CEO, Toma Riken was a genius entrepreneur, also known as the Golden Hand. Even though he has a commoner background, he is quite famous for having more assets than many high-ranking nobles. His real name is Eugene Weiner de Servin, the last prince of the Servin Empire, which was destroyed by Ferja 10 years ago. He is the leader of the rebel forces aiming for the revival of the Servin, known as Genia, and he is also the lord of northernmost Carrion Great Plains, lord of the Keyser family, and the true Northern Duke. He judges Sasha, which he realizes is a girl, to be quite extraordinary. He judges her to be noble from the way she holds the teacup. What surprises him more is that she knows his true identity. Riken apologizes for the unexpected revelation and asks Klisha what she actually meant when she called her the Northern Duke. He decides that he would eradicate her on the spot depending upon the answer she gives. She couldn't help but think she was officially on the brink of losing her mind. It was just that the man in front of her resembled the Grand Duke of the North so perfectly that she got carried away. With a flustered smile, she replies it is nothing. Riken questions her if she just called him Grand Duke of the North a moment ago. She blatantly lies in his face that she misspoke and to forget it. However, it doesn't escape his notice how she glossed over it so blatantly. He wonders if this woman is playing mind games with him. Facing each other from opposite sides of the tea table, she asks how she should pay. He lets out a sigh and says he'll sort it out, pulling a calculator from seemingly nowhere. She blinks in surprise, wondering where it appeared from. He begins by calculating the repair cost for 3 buildings, compensation for business losses, compensation for the mental distress of the store owners, the cost of damaged goods, waste disposal fees, franchise fees during a repair period, repayment of business loans, and on top of that, compensation for a street tree owned by Muta and 2 streets vendors. The total amount he presents is 50,000 rule. With an overly sweet grin, he comments, however, negligent management of the stables is partly to blame, so they will cover 10% of the costs. He pretends as if it's some huge concession. She gapes at him. She giggles nervously to downplay the situation as she murmurs, "Shall we proceed with that?" and remarks that's quite a hefty sum. She is aware 50,000 rule is about the price of 10 buildings. She acknowledges, though, Muta is near the capital, so the land prices must be high and business compensation must have added up to this amount. But it doesn't matter since there's a trust fund under her name that father set up. If she withdraws it from the bank and pays, father will be notified. And since he's already furious at her and is looking for her, she is aware he will follow her to Muta. However, she decides in that case, since she has already come this far, her father might as well just take care of it, and she might just endure some scolding in return. Riken finds it strange that she seems to understand the value of 50,000 rule well enough. It also surprises him that she is accepting this exorbitant price so readily, prompting him to think, even if she's abandoned pretending to be a commoner, does she really have that much free time? A seed of doubt plants itself in his mind. What if she's the one testing him? He cannot tell if she is clueless or just pretending to be. This nags at him, as it's troubling if she's this difficult to read. She declares she doesn't have cash on her right now. She informs she will withdraw it from the Imperial Bank, so can she step out for a moment? This jolts him into focus as he senses this could be the key moment. He states there are no banks in Motashi, so she will need to go to the capital, but they don't know her identity, so it is difficult to give her several days without collateral. She blinks in surprise because she doesn't have anything to offer as collateral. He reminds her of the horse that caused the accident. He knows it is a mix of dragon and horse, so it should be worth 50,000 and decides to use it as collateral. This throws her for a loop because how does he know that it is a mix of dragon and horse? Her mouth gapes as she realizes that when it destroyed buildings and devoured flesh, it must have been discovered. This revelation strikes her. He must know she's not just an ordinary commoner. The color drains from her face as she reflects on her predicament. She mentally curses herself. She fidgets in her seat, embarrassed as she timidly agrees to use it as collateral and asks how she can get to the capital. Admitting he also has businesses in the capital, he offers her to accompany him in his carriage. Surprised, she quickly blurts out her thanks. Later, his butler asks if he'll be accompanying that boy, or rather girl, to the capital. He confirms it, but the butler raises a concern. Even though the Emperor has been quiet lately, couldn't it be a trap set by the Imperial side? Unfazed, he reflects the easiest way to see through a person. It's to keep talking to them, no matter how skillfully someone fabricates lies and pretends. Over time, as more words accumulate, contradictions and gaps eventually appear and their hidden traits are revealed. Gazing out the window at the carriage, he announces whatever she's hiding doesn't matter. It's a full day's journey from Muta to the capital, and he plans to uncover her darkest secrets. As they sit across from each other in the carriage, she feels awkward, believing it's inappropriate to act overly friendly when she's the one at fault. Clearing her throat, she decides to offer a light compliment to ease the tension. The compliment catches him off guard, making him flinch in his seat once more. She tells him he resembles the Grand Duke of the North. He wonders, what is this? Is she openly testing him? He declares that he has no ties to the North and is just an ordinary businessman. He reminds himself to remain natural while focusing on her expressions to study her. Her mouth drops open as she asks if he perhaps doesn't know who the Grand Duke of the North is. Annoyed, as he still struggles to read her expression, he inquires if she means the Grand Duke title of the northern region. He wonders if she's determined to engage in a high-level psychological battle. Fine, she declares out of the blue, her seriousness evident. Pointing a finger at him, she reminds him that it is one day to the capital. A smile lights up her face as she announces she will teach him everything perfectly. However, Ryukin ends up regretting his decision to bring her along to death. The first question she graces him with is, if his beloved woman has fallen in the hallway, what is the correct action? Should he kill the architect who designed the hallway, the servant responsible for cleaning it, or the designer who made her shoes? Perplexed, he asks why he would kill unrelated people over her falling, and what this has to do with the Grand Duke of the North. Wrong answer, she announces. Her second question is, if his beloved woman cannot sleep at night, what is the correct action? Should he kill the furniture maker who supplied the bed, the head maid who neglected her insomnia, or the trader who made her pajamas? With both hands raised, the man demands to know why all the options involve killing someone. Does she have some personality issues? Once again, his answer is marked as wrong. She lets him know this is a serious question. The third question asks, if the Emperor orders his fiancée to go to a battlefield where certain death awaits, what is he going to do? The baffled man blurts out, it is the Emperor's command. He has to obey. What else can he do? Once again, she states, wrong. This time, I agree. She gapes at him, pointing an accusatory finger his way as she blurts out, he is not the Grand Duke of the North. He freezes in his spot, thinking he is the Grand Duke of the North. She approaches him and leans in closer, murmuring, since ancient times, the Grand Duke of the North must be strong and resilient, beautiful, mysterious, and much more like unparalleled in bed. His cheeks turn crimson as he wonders what on earth is with this woman now. What is she talking about? He pleads with her to stop talking about that and to change the subject. He aims for the direction of the conversation to shift to why she arrived in Muta or to talk about that horse. She tells him no, he cannot do that, and to consider himself lucky. She announces she happens to be one of the leading experts in the northern anti-aircraft field. His eyes widen and he questions himself. What on earth is a northern anti-aircraft expert? About 24 hours from Muta to the capital, Ryukin will remember this day as the longest journey of his life. She gazes out of the carriage window in awe, taking in the many buildings of the capital. Her eyes suddenly spot something, and she turns to the driver, exclaiming that she will get off here. Ryukin, who looks half dead, nearly begs his driver to do it soon before he manages to compose himself and states, of course, please do. She thinks she's finally free and asks him again, so she is supposed to take the money to Muta and exchange it for her horse, right? She thanks him for the ride as he gets off the carriage and offers his hand to help her down. Her cheeks flush crimson as she stares at him in awe, thinking, really his face alone is heavenly. However, she lets him know that even if he suddenly decides to charm her with his looks, she cannot give him a passing grade. At most, she would give him 60 points. Confused, he murmurs, what? She declares she only recognizes a northern duke if he scores at least 90 points. He deadpans to himself, he really doesn't need that. Well then, she states with a mischievous smile, she would gladly be kidnapped and imprisoned. With confusion lacing his voice, he asks why would he do such a thing to her. Not choosing to answer that, she bows gracefully and bids him farewell. As she skips away, he smiles at her departing figure. The man watching them looks shocked, wondering if the Grand Duke revealed his identity to that woman. Now he's letting her go alive. He asks Ryukin, did you confirm her identity, or should we put a tail on her? But Ryukin firmly refuses. He tells himself to leave her be. There's no need to worry about her any longer. The man is baffled because Riken, after losing his homeland and being driven by a desire for revenge against Ferja, the same man who has pursued a singular goal, the lost royal of Servan, has now fallen in love. The Duke orders his man to head to the capital. The man wants to object, warning him that a suspicious woman like that is unacceptable, but he remains quiet and obeys his boss. On the way, he sighs in relief, thinking he might just go mad. The entire journey, the topic of the Northern Duke never ends. Day and night, she never stops talking. He wonders where she gets the energy to chatter so much. For her, is being cute everything? Then he mentally punches himself for even thinking of her as cute. He realizes he's so tired that he's truly losing his mind because of that crazy woman. He's been bewitched by her, he thinks flippantly, but the moment the thought settles, he goes like, no, he wasn't bewitched. His gaze suddenly lights on something, and his expression shifts from frustration to shock. Meanwhile, as she strolls through the market, she stretches her arms and reflects. Now that she thinks about it, her boss must have known she was a woman all along. She guesses she was too excited and talked too much to realize it sooner. Anyway, she reaches the temple and gazes at it, recalling that they said there was a mistake in the marriage registry here. Stay calm, she tells herself, reminding herself to explain the situation and get it resolved. With a knock, she calls out, asking if anyone is there. Clisha Mesrin from Shamarian requests an audience with the high priest. As she gazes at the temple before her, she wonders what's going on. This great temple is supposed to welcome worshippers 24/7, 365 days a year. Knocking once more, she asks if someone is present. Baffled, she muses whether everyone has gone on vacation. Suddenly, she startles as a window on the other side opens and a little child peeks out. He informs her, the free meal distribution is in the plaza in front of the royal palace, not here. Straightening her hat, she declares she is not a vagrant. She is a Mesrin, the heir of the Mesrin family and the lord of Shamarian. She requests the little priest to summon the high priest. The little boy flicks his finger, pointing her in the direction where the high priest can be found. With a sense of dejection, she hangs her head low and walks away. The high priest pokes his head out from behind the child and asks if she has left. The child confirms, yes, she has. He states good, well done. In the future, if that person comes again, he wants him to make sure to handle it in the same way. The child murmurs his compliance but wonders why he isn't allowing her into the temple. The priest reveals that is because there is someone she needs to cross paths with before she meets him. The little child thinks to himself, she didn't seem to just make something up. As she walks back, her tummy grumbles with hunger. Talking about the Northern Duke has only made her miss her meal even more. She decides to withdraw money from the bank today and properly visit the Great Temple tomorrow. If they don't believe her, she will just break down the door. Now that her identity is already exposed, she decides to stay at a hotel tonight. Her mouth forms an O as she reads the poster stating that the bank is closed on weekends, as well as on holidays and national holidays. She giggles nervously, realizing how different the capital is. The bank closes at 4:00 p.m., so when are working people supposed to go? And it's not open on weekends either. Amazing, she deadpans. She recalls the child's words about the meal distribution taking place in the plaza in front of the royal palace. Determined, she decides to head there for the free meal. Although she feels a bit ashamed to take what is meant for vagrants, she looks somewhat rough herself. As she arrives at the site, the notice states the distribution is finished and instructs visitors to come between 4:00 and 6:00 p.m. Unfortunately, it is now 6:15 p.m. Frustrated, she settles among the beggars, berating herself for not leaving a handful of money with those brothers. No sugar, no money. She has to survive in this unfamiliar city for 2 whole days, and the thought is overwhelming. The only silver lining is that her precious Creta is still safe. However, in the next moment, her eyes nearly pop out of her head, and her mouth drops open as she realizes she has lost it. The Duke looks at the thing in his and wonders if that woman could have accidentally left it behind. On the other hand, she grits her teeth in frustration. She thinks the fake Northern Duke ended up scamming her with his seductive face and figure. He bewitched her, but then she shakes her head, refusing to admit that she was impressed by him. Count Murray replies negatively to the question posed by His Majesty. The king expresses his desire to simply inspect the people. What's the problem now? He asks. Count Murray's concern is that if His Majesty's identity is revealed, it will cause great confusion. The king counters that this is why he has changed his clothes. Still, it is not possible, the count objects. "Why not?" His Majesty inquires. The Count explains that His Majesty's face is already too recognizable, which is true. He has an undeniable aura that surrounds him, the aura of someone of high standing who attracts too much attention. How many people in the Empire have blonde hair like his? Do you have any idea how much trouble the guards go through whenever he goes out like this? The Count demands for him to stop these secret inspections and go on an official tour through proper procedures. With a stern guess, he decides no, that is too bothersome. The poor Count's look like he is regretting his life choices that led him here. Emperor's Guard Clarence finally speaks up, siding with the Count Murhis because his opinion is also valid. She takes out a potion and suggests how about trying this? She explains it changes the pigmentation of the body for about a day, and it has no significant side effects. However, if he uses a rune, the effect will wear off immediately, so he needs to be careful. After he consumes it, his hair transforms to brown. He gazes at himself in the mirror and murmurs, "This is quite useful." The Count gasps in shock, agreeing with this appearance. There certainly won't be a problem. Draped in his cloak, he hurriedly moves to the window. Before leaping out, he declares, this time, he doesn't even need the guards. The Count scoffs to himself, wondering when will His Majesty get used to the procedures fitting his status. His Majesty's guard, looking resigned, suggests at this point he should adapt. The Count then shifts his focus to the potion. He admits he has never seen anything like this before, and it looks really useful. She asks him if he forgot her name. Master of Modern Medicine. She admits it was originally meant to be a hair loss treatment, but it turned out like this due to side effects. 10 years after the war has ended, Furza has revived to the point where it is hard to find races of the war. But now other problems have arisen. His Majesty arrives at the free meal distribution center. He wonders if there are that many starving people for such a thing to operate, and reflects on how it has been a long time since the relief decree was issued. So what are those court officials doing? He cannot help but wonder if he has been too lenient with them, and decides when he returns he will call Murhi immediately. A tap on his shoulder jolts him back to reality. Cliziet is there, quietly telling him it's over. They won't be giving out any more food today. She mutters under her breath, grateful they even distribute on weekends. Still, today's a bust. At first glance, he realizes she's a woman disguised as a man, and more significantly, he senses the energy radiating from her. A high-level fire rune user. It dawns on him, there are fewer than 10 such users in the entire Empire, and one is posing as a vagrant. Ta charming smile spreads across his face as he removes his cloak, murmuring that he'll just find out directly. He also asks would she be interested in being employed by him for a while. She's taken aback by his sheer beauty. It hits her, he is too handsome to be a vagrant. There's something familiar about him too, a nagging sense that she's seen him before. Tapping her cheeks, she reminds herself that her type is the black-haired, red-eyed Grand Duke of the North, not this blonde-haired, green-eyed side character. But the way her flushed face betrays her tells a different story. He calls for her attention when he notices her in a trance. He lets her know with her permission he can provide food for her. Before he can make sense of it, she is bowing in front of him, promising to do anything he asks and referring to him as boss. I guess food can do that to you, though she lets him know as long as the menu is meat. He shakes her hand and the lie swiftly escapes his lips. That he is a private detective Ray Vaughn. He returns his greeting and introduces herself. Sasha, another lie. She asks him what she should do and refers to him as a detective. He points out a man passing by and states he is suspected of cheating on his wife, so she should follow him and catch him during the act. She is quick to obey because she considers him a very bad guy. She runs after him, and they both hide around the corner as she gestures for him to stay quiet. It doesn't escape His Majesty's notice that she's a red-haired fire rune user, reminding him of someone from the past. They both peek from the corner and see the man doing something suspicious. Without hesitation, she dashes toward him, shouting, "Stop right there, cheater." The man bolts, but they soon hit a dead end. His Majesty is puzzled. Why is he running? They both jump in shock as the man uses magic to leap over the wall. Before His Majesty can react, Clicia picks him up bridal style and with her powers, effortlessly leaps after the man, landing smoothly on the other side. He pats her head, murmuring, "Well done, such a good person," and to his surprise, she takes the compliment like an eager puppy. She realizes he's using magic means he's not just a petty criminal. Now that it has come to this, she's determined to catch him. The man runs into a building. Alicia realizes this is a meeting place. She cannot help but wonder what kind of adultery happens in such a shabby place, However, His Majesty's eyes widen when he sees a bronze engraved with 4 sevens. He realizes it is Lucky Box. Dark Auction House Lucky Box. This is where the client requests something and they get it for them, whatever it may be. However, since they put all items up for auction, the client must wait until their item is successfully auctioned off, which can be troublesome, but with a completion rate of 99.96%, they have become the largest intermediary guild in the empire. The door barges open and the man comes running. The people inside inquire what is the matter. Is there a problem? The man informs them somehow a tail has been attached. The people are shocked because it is the best expert in Lucky Box. So how did that happen? However, the man tries to assure them, telling them he has shaken them off for sure. He places a bag on the table and states, more importantly, he has it. This is a jackpot. He reveals that it's an assassination plan against His Majesty, the Emperor. On the other hand, Klisha looks shocked and asks again to be sure she heard correctly. She presses, did he really say not to get involved further? His Majesty, meanwhile, has taken notice of how advanced her fire rune abilities are, as well as her impressive skill in martial arts. He acknowledges she could help in an emergency, but still isn't willing to involve civilians any further. He tells her it is dangerous, so she should go back and not to mention what she saw today. He pauses in shock when she screams after him that if it is dangerous he shouldn't go either. She states, determined that she would rather go herself, as how can someone as delicate as him wander around alone? Despite his efforts to hold back, he bursts into laughter. Leaning in closer, he gently pats her on the head, promising to buy her meat the next time they meet. Klisha's cheeks turn bright red. After reassuring her not to worry and urging her to go back, he departs, leaving a flustered Klisha behind. The crowd has gathered for the auction, and the speaker welcomes the esteemed ladies and gentlemen, expressing gratitude for their return today. Among them, His Majesty watches closely, disguised as one of the guests. The original guest, whose identity His Majesty has assumed, lies unconscious, while His Majesty has claimed both his seat and mask, blending seamlessly into the gathering. The speaker introduces today's auction list. It runs like the wind, the best breed of horse exclusive to the imperial family, a mixed-blood adult. They are also selling a boy to be a servant. And finally, there is an empire crisis. The speaker asks, doesn't the name seem familiar? He hints it to be related to His Majesty the Emperor. His eyes widen at that. A smile touches his lips as he thinks, how can they be so lucky? Jackpot. While wandering through the city, Klisha reflects on how she'd been hoping to score some meat. Her mind drifts back to him, and she thinks that man was really light and thin. Little does she know it is her who is strong. She reflects on how he cannot even use runes, but what she doesn't know is that he hid his energy well. Now that her thoughts are being consumed by him, she cannot help but wonder what if he gets caught by some bad man and gets harmed. She attempts to ignore the worry gnawing at her gut and presses on, but midway down the road she groans and abruptly turns back. On the other hand, His Majesty is witnessing all the things currently taking place at the auction and realizes the scale is bigger than he expected. Serious crimes like human trading are also happening. He believes with this scale it is better to call the Imperial Guards rather than solving it alone. He watches from the corner of his eye as she sneaks up behind him and curiously asks, is this an affair scene? He turns to face her and questions why she is here. She honestly admits she was so worried about him that she decided to follow. He wants to know how she managed to get in with that suspicious appearance. She just smiles and remarks the guards were pretty useless it seems. But then her attention shifts to her surroundings. She looks around in awe and remarks, the inside is completely different from the outside. The outside looked so shabby. He merely gazes at her, wondering if she's an idiot. The speaker then presents a boy, announcing that he was born on a mysterious desert night at the far end of the continent, with eyes that gleam like jewels, skin as dark as the night sky, and hair as blue as the clear heavens. Isn't he beautiful and mysterious? The speaker asks, before starting the bidding at 100,000. Klisha freezes in shock. His Majesty attempts to calm her, but an anger unlike any she has ever felt settles deep within her as she wonders, what have they been fighting for these past 10 years? Instantly, she leaps into the air, glancing back and apologizing to the detective. This affair is no longer important to her. The bid has reached 450,000 for the child as she lands directly on the stage. The speaker freezes, sensing her presence. Who is she? He asks in surprise. In response, she curses at him, reminding him that trading children is illegal. Guards rush toward her, while the speaker nervously laughs, trying to downplay the situation. He apologizes to the startled guests, adding with a strained smile, "Sometimes there are those who don't know their place." She rushes to the child's side, and as she works to loosen his bonds, she promises him she will set him free. The kid tries to object, telling her not to interfere, but she just picks him up like a sack, thinking he's just too young and having trouble understanding the situation, and she will save him. His Majesty, who's taking in the scene, wonders what if he was trying to say something important. He then gazes at the two men approaching to stop her. He thinks it is over. They are so full of themselves, thinking they have several rune users under their command, but they should also know that rune magic also has its limits. Especially advanced fire rune users, most would have never seen one in their lifetime. With the power summoned by the female protagonist, the entire place erupts in an explosion. Gazing at the destruction left in the wake of her power, she murmurs that she never intended to go this far. It has been a while, so she could not control her strength. Her attention shifts to the child wriggling in her grasp, demanding to be set on his feet. He glares at them with his crystalline eyes and lashes out, asking how dare they interfere with him, and declaring he will never forgive this. He points his tiny finger at Clisha, and states, especially the redhead, he will remember her face. She just smiles at him and pats his head, reminding him they saved him, not interfered, and he should not point fingers at adults like that. However, His Majesty murmurs "Myrrh," gaining both of their attention. She turns to him, asking what it means, while the boy looks shocked and wonders how he knows. His Majesty explains to the boy that he possesses the gift of the situation and points out that he can see the people behind him shifting nervously since earlier, suggesting that he can leave now. Her mouth drops open as she notices the people he mentioned approaching the little boy. With just a gesture of his hand, he tells them to take him. They express their gratitude and leave with the child. She stands there, shocked, glancing around and wondering what these people are doing and who the boy is, all while questioning the word he had murmured earlier. He informs her that it mirrors a type of magic, similar to rune but slightly different. She refers to him as detective and expresses her awe, asking if there is anything he doesn't know. He doesn't reply, believing he needs to sort out the situation first. As he leaves, he warns her to be careful from now on, mentioning that the auction house will be snooping around. She tries to stop him, but he departs, leaving her standing there all alone, pondering why they all left without even saying goodbye. She stretches her arms, confused by how quickly they moved without using rune. Suddenly, her eyes widen as she realizes she hasn't managed to score any meat for the day. She screams into the air, reminding him that he promised to treat her to meat. Meanwhile, the men from earlier crouch down in front of the little boy, reminding him how close it was. The boy, Mr. Seda, looks irritated as they remind him that the mission was too risky, and that if the Sultan finds out, he will be furious. He murmurs, if it weren't for those meddling fools, he would have succeeded. He believes that in order to find his brother in this country, the fastest way to infiltrate a foolish noble family is to pose as their servant. He then asks his men who the hell are those guys? He jolts upright in his bed when his man informs him the brown-haired man is the emperor of this empire. He asks his man if he's sure because he looked different. The man assures him he's the one and could not figure out why he has changed his appearance. However, he could recognize him by his aura. He murmurs, no wonder the aura felt familiar to him as well. He believes now that even the emperor is aware they should return to their homeland. Suddenly, something dawns on him, and he comes to a halt, his demeanor shifting. He places a hand on his chest and realizes that, now that he thinks about it, he was too distracted to notice earlier that ever since he touched that man, the pain has disappeared. He refers to Clisha as a man because of the disguise. He asks his companion, who was the redhead next to the emperor, was she an escort? The man apologizes but admits that the person was unfamiliar to him. All he knows is that she was female. This catches him off guard. He then takes out his mirror and declares it is stabilized now. The man speaks again, pleading with him to hurry. He replies, all right. By the use of magic, the child's disguise shifts, revealing his original adult form. However, his attention remains focused on that woman. He wonders if, at the country's founding, he will get a chance to meet her again. Meanwhile, His Majesty is back at the palace, and his men are kneeling before him. He inquires what on earth they are doing, considering there is literally an auction going on without their information. Poor them, the Count thinks, for having been dragged out while sleeping as a group. He reminds them that excuses are of no use now. He left the matter alone, believing they would handle it. It seems, however, that their plan is to ruin the empire. One of the knights murmurs that this is not the case. The man then explains that Lord Ran was the one who said they wouldn't survive in clear waters and that it would be better to manage them if they were kept in invisible places, so he told them to leave it be. This angers His Majesty, and he curses him in his mind. He then asks for their location. They all reply that, as captain of the knights, he should be on the scene right now, which turns out to be true as we see Rian on the other side, his demeanor too relaxed and chirpy for the atmosphere. He has captured some people from the auction and remarks, "They really made a mess again today." His knights inform him that the cleanup is almost done and that there seem to be no civilian casualties. He smiles and states that at least he managed to control his strength a bit. Suddenly, he stops, noticing the file under his feet. He picks it up to check it while his knight informs him that all the thugs have been dealt with. As for the items he asked about regarding the crisis in the Empire, they have not yet been sold. He sifts through the contents of the file he picked up from the ground, and a smile spreads across his face as he replies to the knight, "It's fine." He thinks he has scattered information here and there in addition to lucky boxes, and anyone with a nose for money would never miss it. He thinks about how the Servant Empire was destroyed by Ferja, and that the remnants that were thought to be completely extinct have survived in Ferja's land, and how now going to attack the Emperor after 10 years. He wonders how his brother will react. At the capital, at Riken's ancestral house, his man, Luke, informs him that Zhenya's movements are suspicious. He reveals that they plan to attack the Emperor directly. Riken murmurs, "What?" shocked at the revelation. He lashes out in anger, demanding to know what kind of nonsense this is. They made this decision without reporting to him, the head. Luke informs him that, according to the elders, they are somewhat discontent with his plan, perhaps because of the long preparation. He continues, explaining that they have prepared a trump card to capture the Emperor and are in a frenzy to make him pay for his sins as soon as possible. He declares that tomorrow night they intend to give him the gift, which is the bridge of his nose, tired of thinking they are just lazy, impatient old men. He turns his back to his man and announces to discard Zhenya. This shocks the man, who flinches in his spot and murmurs, "Master," in surprise. He believes there should be no obstacles that hinder revenge. With his back still turned to him, Riken declares that their plan is perfect as it is. The nobles and retainers of Servan who survived the war with Ferja found a secret group called Zhenya and hid in various parts of Ferja, concealing their teeth and claws to restore the glory of Servan. He admits that 10 years have passed since the war, and while their impatience is understandable, surviving the war means they have never met Yan Ferja in person. They do not know who His Majesty is, what that guy is. An image of him crying over a dead body as a child flashes through his mind, and he trails off. He then declares that it is fine, but he should check out the secret weapon Zhenya prepared. He gives this man another shot, who wants to know if he's going to the scene himself. The man objects, stating that it is too dangerous. He will send a support team instead, but he is cut off by Riken, who assures him he does not intend to help them. Even if he's stupid, he must have found a way to infiltrate the palace. While they are here, they should sightsee the Imperial Palace. He announces he will be there by tomorrow night. Klisha probably could not find any meat, and now she looks like a piece of dead meat herself, sitting in the corner. Suddenly, she reveals that her luggage has vanished while she moved for just a moment. Here seats are assigned for beggars, so she cannot just sit anywhere. The poor girl cries, thinking the capital is so cold and harsh. She decides this is all that idiot's fault. The unknown husband, no, the Emperor, she corrects. And that stupid detective. She resolves to not forgive them, unaware both are the same person. Someone pokes her shoulder with finger in, catching her attention. She looks up to find a boy who asks her if she's new here. She replies, "Yeah," she guesses. Is this seat his too? However, he just hands her a piece of bread and smiles, telling her this is for her. Confused, she takes it from him but asks, "Isn't it his?" He lets her know he got it in the dining hall and can grab another one later. He says it is free since they are distributing it to help those in need, and he wanted to give it to someone who was hungrier than him. Her eyes water at the kindness of the little child. Now that she's munching on it and being comforted by him, she thinks the capital feels so warm, her thoughts contradicting her earlier statement about the capital. She looks around at all the homeless people hunched in the alleyway alongside her. She is surprised because there are so many homeless people in the capital. She had heard it was the richest city. The boy asks her if she wasn't aware. It is the richest city. That's why the poor gather here, he reveals, explaining that since the capital is directly overseen by the Emperor, they believe the relief is most abundant, and if people are lucky, they may even be given a job. The boy reveals that he originally came from a rural village called Sumarine. After his mom and dad abandoned him, he barely made it to the capital after a long carriage ride. With a smile, the boy declares that His Majesty is the only one who cares for people like them. The name of the village catches her attention, and she murmurs, almost to herself, that there were poor people in his village, Sumarine too. However, the boy hears her and states that she talks like a noble and asks if there is any place without poor people. However, he believes His Majesty might end all poverty one day. He smiles and says he respects His Majesty the most, but then pauses when a rich man throws a sandwich at his face and mocks him. One of them states why he is wasting a sandwich while another, with mockery, says he's feeding it to a beggar, right? The man complains that his appetite has been ruined by the rotten smell and wonders where these rats keep coming from. He continues, asking what His Majesty is doing and why he does not get rid of them. When Clisha glares at them, they challenge her, asking what she is staring at. The man looks down at her and asks if she's angry, adding if she even knows who he is. After the man is beaten black and blue, he is escorted away by a guard, while screaming if he knows who he is and whether she thinks his dad will let this slide. However, she does not bother to respond to this rat. Her hands are tied with cuffs as she thinks to herself, the capital city is really strict. They call the guards just because she slightly hit someone. Back home, they would just shake hands and be done with it. She is surrounded by guards and is aware that if she used her rune, escaping from guys like this would be easy. She makes a movement that makes everyone think she's trying to escape, but she was just preparing to fall face first to the ground. The confused guards ask among themselves who tricked her, but then they realize she fell on her own. She cannot stand it anymore, she's hungry. Meanwhile, the captain of the guards screams at her, asking if she's even listening. He tells her that the victim she attacked is the youngest son of a judicial official, and they cannot ignore it, even if it was just between commoners. She thinks to herself, he wasn't anything special. When she remains quiet, the captain demands to know why she isn't answering quickly. He wants to know her age, hometown, and the purpose of her being in the capital. She sighs and reminds herself to stay calm. It is just a matter of telling the truth. She states, she is Lady Clisha of the Shumaran's Viscount family, and she has come to see the High Priest and Her Majesty the Empress. He stares at her with a blank expression and asks for her identity card. With a cute smile, she informs them that it was stolen, and she offers that same smile as justice. Moments later, she has the same cute smile as she stands in a prison cell. They have written in her file that her name, age, and occupation are unknown, and that there is a possibility of illegal intrigue. It also seems she has severe delusions or logorrhea. She now bears the labels of significant violence and antisocial behavior stamped on her, along by a notice that ongoing behavioral observation is necessary. The poor girl is subjected to 3 months of imprisonment.